good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Harry Brelsford here from SMB Nation. It's, what do you know, it's already the third Thursday or so of July. I mean, this summer is just flying by. Always like to think that we're going to have a lot of free time in the summer, and I'm always surprised how busy it is. But a little bit of housekeeping, a couple updates. So let's start with the housekeeping. As you know, this is our weekly webinar, Thursday webinar, and we have a especially relevant presentation today that we'll get to in a moment. And use the chat feature to ask your questions. There will be plenty of time for questions at the end. So we synced up to make sure that we leave enough time not only for your questions, but also to kind of honor our promise to you to keep the webinar within 60 minutes and get you back out billing and working again. So that's kind of the housekeeping items. A couple of updates. I had a great WPC, Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference last week, and saw some people I know, and quite frankly, I saw a lot of people I didn't know. So that was very interesting. The crowd's kind of turned over a little bit, and the pillar messaging on Office 365, I'll tell you, if this was not the year of Office 365, good Lord, they're certainly building for the year of Office 365 in the future, next year. Couple of friends impacted with the Microsoft layoffs. That's a whole other story. I'll pop up a blog on that in the next day or so. And where can we all get together? So I'm headed to the CompTIA Conference Con, used to be called Breakaway, so I'll be down at the CompTIA show in early August, followed by the D&H show the next week on the 12th in Boston, and then finally my 14th annual picnic for SMB IT pros comes the third Thursday of August out here. Keep your eye on our blog for that. And then finally, in the announcement department, we have the 12th annual SMB Nation Conference, September 26th through 28th at the Microsoft Conference Center. Really getting a great response because we're really focusing, I'd almost call it a summit. We're focusing on Office 365 this year along with the hybrid story. So that's kind of the announcements and housekeeping. So a friend of the family, Thomas Koll from PCmover is here at Laplink, and going to talk about what's going on out in the world. And Thomas, I have a question for you, and then please introduce yourself and let's rock and roll. But are you guys seeing what we're seeing? Oddly, we're seeing an increase in XP migrations after the April 8th deadline, and that was a conversation at WPC. I'll start with that, Thomas, and then please introduce yourself. But are you guys seeing an uptick out there?
No, not really. I mean, we saw, a great bubble, of course, in March, April, and into the May. It seems that there's a little bit of a summer slowdown, but, I think from all what I heard is that the XP numbers went down, but certainly they are there. And there are still a high percentage of small business are sitting on XP, and, they need a way to get off.
Yeah, exactly. So for the audience members that don't know you, sir, you're the chairman and CEO of Laplink. What is your story? Please introduce yourself, and we'll get going.
Well, thank you very much, Harry. Pleasure to be on your Thursday webinars. Yes, I have been now with Laplink for, I think, 11 years out of the 30-year history of Laplink. And my story is pretty easy. I actually come out of academia. I was an assistant professor for international politics. And in the early 80s, they gave me PC, and that was a big mistake. And that ended my academic career, and I was more interested in PCs. Joined Microsoft in 1988 and retired from Microsoft in 2001 as corporate vice president for the telecommunication and mobile side. So I have been very much involved in everything that is, the early starting points of mobile telecommunication and all the change, conversions, what have you. So since then, I have taken over Laplink, and must say that we have been very lucky to be, again, in a world market-leading position with PCmover, but we will talk about that today because it's a very, very relevant topic.
Okay, very cool.
Good. with that, perhaps I should start.
Yep. Let's jump right into it.
Thank you very much for joining me today on this webinar. The topic really is about PC deployments and how we can basically improve productivity during deployment projects. Again, as we talked, not only for XP, but also that there are many different Windows versions in the marketplace. Deploying PCs today usually comes with a new OS, whether it's Windows 7, Windows 8, and next year Windows 9 or whatever it's called. So over the next years, we will have a constant migration schedule, and that is a challenge in many cases. So I will talk for about 30 to 40 minutes, and we will have time for questions afterwards. I know that Harry will jump in and interrupt me if he's getting curious about something, and please do so. Otherwise, I think you can use your chat button.
You bet.
So let's see if I want to, there's the agenda. I already talked a little bit about it, so let's just start into that. So Laplink is actually 30 years old, and we have been in the business from the beginning of the PC story. Actually, the first products were not even on the PC. But since that time, we always focused on PC migration, on synchronization, remote access, all what has to do with utilities on your PC to make life easier for the end user. Now, migration was always a big deal, because whenever you bought a new PC and you wanted to move your data and settings and applications, that was difficult. At the end, at the beginning of the PC time, perhaps it was a little bit easier. I do remember my first PC. You would just take a 360K floppy from one drive to the next, and you moved your main applications, Word, Lotus 1 to 3 and DBase. You moved to the other machine, and you were done. Now, with Windows, that has become much more complicated. And over the last years, we have really focused on how to make this process as easy as possible, not only for consumers, but especially for small business and larger enterprises. So in the last years, we had the fortune to work with a lot of Fortune 500s, top universities, top government agencies, and we have learned a lot about what is working and what is not working, and trying to capture that and making this whole process, so much more interesting and more productive. So we learned a lot from these customers. Now, a lot of times, I will talk about enterprise, but for me, the enterprise starts with 100 PCs. You might say the enterprise starts with 5,000 PCs. So whatever I say, really, I'll talk about, the small to mid-size and even, larger organizations, or for the same matter, government organizations. So one thing we realize, of course, and Harry already mentioned it, we are now in the post of service of Windows XP, and that means really that there are no more security updates. You know the whole story. I don't have to go into that. But there's one more thing that happened in that time frame, or a little bit before, is also that Microsoft cut out their features for migration. It's not very clear why they did it, whether they wanted to get their code smaller, or they didn't want to support XP anymore. But basically, they had always a utility called the Windows Easy Transfer as part of Windows. That is no longer there, and it seems that it will no longer be there in the future. So that cuts out even the simplest form of files and settings transfer, and that even makes life much easier for smaller business or home offices, who use that that feature. Now, as part of that move, Microsoft also announced the support for PCmover and for Laplink, and endorsed our product as the product of choice, which of course makes us very happy. But it is difficult for users and for small business who perhaps don't know it immediately. So you can help them, introduce the whole scenario. Now, getting a little bit more into, the background of migration processes. So when I look at migration, I actually differentiate between 5 stages. The stage 1 is when you do the inventory and compatibility analysis. You determine, what hardware needs you have, what software needs you have. And that is all well known by the IT departments and by you as the service providers. Stage 2 is where the organizations define their standards, what should be in the new portfolio, what kind of images are done, what kind of logistics. Again, very well researched subjects. But then there's the stage 3, and that is the user state or the personality of the PC. And that is the applications, data, and settings that resides on the old PC and that needs to be moved to the new PC. And I believe very strongly that this stage is one of the under-focused area of research and industry at this stage. There is hardly any study on migration of the user state, and if you even do some searches on Google, you will find that there are some old studies out there, but really it doesn't cover it very dramatically. I think there's one study from Dell who says, well, in automated fashion, it costs you $30. Well, far from it. I think that is actually the most complicated thing, and most of the organization actually ignore it, and that's why we talk about it. Stage 4 is the post-migration help desk support. After migration, there's always a little bit more help desk support, and that is of course very costly. And stage 5 is the reassignment of disposal of the old PCs. Now, whether you give them to charity, whether the organization will dispose of them in any other way, one thing we know is that you have to clean the storage, and I think it's probably one of the biggest myths in PC computing when you want to delete a file in Windows and it says, do you permanently want to delete this file? And of course there's nothing about permanently deleting anything. You can restore any file with off-the-shelf products. Even if you format the PC, some of the products will actually restore data on the hard drives. And there have been studies on buying hard drives from eBay and finding all kinds of financial, government, secret, personal data, etc. We do have a product for that called Safe Erase, but this will not be the topic. Just if you have a need for that, we're happy to engage on that. So from our customers, what do we hear? These are the common complaints during the migration. First of all, PC migrations take too long, require too many IT resources, and are often incomplete. Well, it actually happens in many cases that the migration of the user state is left to the end user. And so that only not disturbs them for many days. They also don't know how to do it. Departmental differences require too many planned scenarios. It is not anymore that one PC is one image, has Office in it, and be done with it. Now all the departments have different images, and with what we call the democratization of IT, it's also that now users will install their own applications that they need. They could be free, they could be certain tools they get from the internet, but they want to have that on the new PC. Third issue is logistical issues with loaners, remote users, and foreign locations. And that will be a recurring theme, because whenever you are dealing with remote users, it is a big, big trouble spot. User downtime of 3 hours and more. I think that is really on the low end. If you have to reinstall something and you leave something to the end user, there's even more downtime and productivity lost. Post-migration support calls. They always go up dramatically, and this is certainly a cost driver for many organizations. So at the end of the day, because the stage 3 is not managed properly, there are unbudgeted costs and time overruns, and we have that all the time where customers come to us and say, well, we haven't finished our project in time, we need to accelerate it, but our service provider cannot do it because it's too much manual labor. There's user dissatisfaction because they get a new PC and it doesn't look like the old PC. It doesn't have their pictures on it, the background pictures with a family. They have to fiddle around with it. A lot of dissatisfaction. Clearly prolonged project cycles and a negative cost impact, what I consider a minimum of $300 to $2,000. So, what are the areas we can avoid? You know, there are certainly, you know, a lot of other mistakes that can be done, but I'm sure that a lot of the IT staffers and the service providers, you know, have lots of experience how to, you know, circumvent some of them. But here are areas that I see again and again that we need to work. First of all, we should not underestimate the soft costs that are associated with the user downtime. These are not costs that will be in the books of the IT department. You know, and a lot of times the IT department does not care. The business owner might care a lot, whether it's the department head or the small business owner. If people are not working, it costs them money. And the more difficult the desktops are, and they can be as difficult as you want in a small company, then, you know, to have a day of fiddling with a PC is just not acceptable.
And Thomas,
yes.
Yeah, I was on a call this morning with a client, a financial services firm in New York. We're going to assist them with a relatively small XP migration. And to this point, you raised an interesting point. To this point, I said, you know, why is it you guys have no problem with getting a hotshot smartphone every 12 months? You know, you drop them, you crack them, you want the latest, you want the 6, you want whatever's hot with the phone, but you're the same guy that will hold on to a laptop for 10 years with Windows XP. I mean, I don't get it. And he commented along these lines. He said, it's the soft cost. It's you know, the going over to Windows 8.1. I mean, I know I need to do it, but it's going to kind of take me out of my game for a couple weeks to, you know, just kind of convert and learn. Does that make sense? Because
yeah.
I was really having the same conversation.
Yes. No, absolutely. We hear that all the time. And again, because people don't understand there are actually solutions for this. You know, the most extreme case I had was with a defense contractor who had a software department. He said, well, we will do it all manually by hand because every machine is very different. This has been, you know, a very complex development system, and we will spend 1 week per user where the user will reconfigure their machines. Now, can you imagine 1 week of development time per user, and he had like 300 of them? You know, I mean, that's the cost goes into the million. So that is a very, very common problem. The second thing is, what we know is that the more customization that is left for an end user, the higher the support costs after the migration. Now you will say, now of course, because the user does not know the new system, and the more he has to say, well, where do I find my signature in the new Word, in the new Office? Well, let me call the support guys, and each call will be $50 to $80, no matter how big the organization or how small the organization is. It has a cost associated. And again, it's very obvious, but sometimes people don't realize it. Thirdly, remote users in field office, home office, or international subsidiaries. The cost here increases exponentially, not just linear. It is exponentially, because suddenly you have to realize, well, perhaps I have to fly some people there. Oh, we don't even have personnel there. It is very difficult. How do we get the machines there? How do we do that? Can we do it remotely? And so on. This, always increases cost. And, one of the, and I have the example later on, one of the insurance companies that said, we had hundreds of users that we needed to update. It cost them over $1,500 just in logistical cost. They're just sending PCs back and forth with loaners. So fourth, data and settings are left behind. That is a common issue. If somebody else is touching your PC, they don't know what your structure is, and especially in XP, we have not been as structured in putting our documents, because we learned it all, you put it C, my data, C, company data, but not where Microsoft wanted to put it, and so people don't know exactly where do you have the data. Some data actually resides within the application directories, or, the program data directory. So you are hunting along as a tech to get those data from the user, who sometimes don't know even that there's a C drive, so they don't know where it is. Those are left behind. And lastly, an incomplete application inventory also results in added migration time. The biggest story here was Intel. They wanted to go with all the machines to Windows 7 some years ago, because they are the main partner for Microsoft. And afterwards, after a couple of months after Windows 7 was out, we saw the first blogs from the Intel IT guys who said, well, we don't know what application people have, so how can we migrate them? We don't have the CDs, we don't know where they got them from. Not to say that they were illegal, they were legal applications, but they just didn't have an idea, so the whole project stalled and didn't go on. So I think, if we are looking at these kind of areas, we can actually reduce some of the costs, the overhead, with automating the migration process. And we have a technology called PCmover that has unique migration capabilities and a very flexible solution that can drive any kind of migration, any kind of need. The benefit that we see is using automated tools such as PCmover is to save a minimum of $300 to $2,000 per PC, finish of course migration much sooner, and improve end user morale. Now, Harry always tells me, well, don't do too much product marketing. The problem is that really PCmover is the only technology that can address this point. So I do have to talk about PCmover, take it as an example for these automation tools, but later I will always tell you that's the only one available. What PCmover can support are 4 scenarios. First of all, to migrate to a new machine. That means to move application data and settings from an old PC to a new PC. You can do that over the network, over the wireless network. You can use a high-speed cable from Laplink. Any way the PCs will connect, we can migrate the application data and settings. The second scenario is a very important scenario that you will find a lot with your customers, and that is upgrading a Windows XP PC to Windows 7 or Windows 8. Microsoft does not support that, never have. And so what it means, or what Microsoft, and I have another slide on that so I don't have to talk too much about it, but basically this is the only solution that you have where you can take an in-place upgrade and preserve your application data and settings in that phase. Secondly, again, totally unique. Nobody else has that solution. We can actually recover your application data and settings from a hard drive or virtual hard drive. So that has 2 meanings. First of all, if you have an image of an XP machine and you want to restore that because the machine is broken or whatever, and it doesn't work anymore, your XP image is totally useless. Because the only way you can restore that is on basically an old PC. If you now buy a Windows 8 machine, I doubt that your ghost image or your Acronis true image will work on an 8.1 machine, because you will, first of all, you will delete everything on the new PC, and suddenly you have an XP machine. And whether the new hardware actually will work with the XP drivers, I doubt it. So that is totally useless. With PCmover, we can actually restore the application data and settings from a virtual directory that, like mounting an image, and then we can extract it and put it into the Windows 7 system. The same with a hard drive. So if the hard drive is still good, but the PC doesn't, do anything, you can take the hard drive out, connect it to a new PC, and we can actually extract the application data and settings from that hard drive to the new PC. It's a wonderful way. We now even have a cable that you can just plug the hard drive in, and it's the fastest way to do it. This is actually a tremendous solution for service providers, not necessarily for end users, but for service providers, because what you can do is you can just rip the hard drive out of the old PC, connect it to the new PC, and you have the fastest migration. So we can do 50 gigabyte in an hour that way, quite impressive with USB 3. Last scenario is physical to virtual, so we can also move application data and settings from a physical machine to a virtual machine, whether it runs in Windows, even in Mac. It's all very possible. So what can PCmover migrate? Well, first of all the installed applications and the associated settings, user accounts, all the files, the folders, the drives, etc. Now, there are some caveats to it. First of all, we don't want to, and we recommend, and we block a lot, is to move applications with hardware drivers. And that includes antivirus and anti-spy applications. They always have hidden hardware drivers that Windows doesn't see, and usually they will not work on the new system. Besides, antivirus, anti-spy are very OS specific, and so you always, they want to sell you new software products, of course, and for your customers, that is also another revenue stream. The other caveat I have to say is that, of course, 35% of XP applications 32-bit are not compatible with a Windows 7 or Windows 8 64-bit system. And we have tried to test a lot of applications, but there are, of course, millions and millions and millions. So we will tell you a little bit of which applications will not work, and but there are a lot of applications where we just don't know. So in your testing beforehand, before you do any kind of projects, you probably will know what is compatible with the new system, what is not. With PCmover, it's extremely easy then to deselect these applications and not move them. So that is very important, that you have a selectivity feature in PCmover that allows you to deselect application, deselect folders, deselect even file types, change user accounts, etc. And we will also move domain users in that respect. So just a quick word on how much money you can save. I get always asked about the $300 to $2,000 that I'm talking about. So when is it 300? When is it 2,000? I see it as a pretty easy way to look at it, and that is I call it the PCmover Enterprise Value Quadrant, and it has two axes. One is PCs, whether they are centralized or remote, and whether they are IT managed and user managed. So if you have a situation where an organization has all the PCs in the headquarters, they are fully managed by IT, meaning nobody can install anything, the users have no admin rights, data's on the server, etc. The user can really not add any personalization to that PC. The value of PCmover trends towards zero. On the other hand, if users have admin rights, they can install stuff, and they're remote from you, then the value is the highest, and so it can creep up to $2,000 per desktop. What I have experienced with many organizations is that there's no organization that fits into a very particular point in this quadrant, but they have everything. That even the companies that have the closely managed PCs in a headquarter and say, well, we don't need any of your tools, they have to admit that on the fringe they have subsidiaries, they have international subsidiaries where they don't follow the same rules, they do it in different languages, and so my saying is always, PCmover is not for every desktop, but it's really for every organization, and there are always a big chunk of PCs where PCmover can make a difference. Secondly, here again is the upgrade challenge. As I said, Microsoft does not offer an in-place upgrade of XP to Windows 7 or Windows 8. And Microsoft actually says, well, install it all by hand. Well, you know that you couldn't charge that much money to install it, so a lot of times you can't do the job. If you have to do it all by hand, you can't offer that kind of service. With PCmover, this is an easy service to offer. You can offer it to all your customers because it is a very easy way. You just have to install Windows 7 or Windows 8 on the desktop as a custom install, not a clean install, because then you would have wiped the hard drive and everything is gone. And after you have installed Windows 7 or Windows 8, PCmover can extract all the application data and settings that were put in the windows.old directory and make it possible to use again on Windows 7 and Windows 8. We have been very successful with this product, and as I said, it's the only way to do an in-place upgrade effectively and in a short amount of time. So for larger deployments, and let's say at least 100 PCs, we also have the PCmover Enterprise that adds a policy manager module that allows you to create rules how the migration is to be done. And that is a very useful tool for IT departments and service providers, because you can say, the 20 questions that you have to answer when you move through a migration process in a wizard, those can be all predefined and pre-answered and pre-configured. So the standard PCmover basically has all our configuration in it and a lot of open questions, but you can create for your customer very easily a special version that works for that customer or for a certain set of customers. It's very easily done. You don't need any development knowledge. It is a wizard-driven client, and usually within a day you're master of that. So here's just a view of the policy manager. On the left side, you can see there are like the 15, 20 questions that you can do, and right now we are looking at the application selection screen. And what you can do here is basically very easily put in applications you want to move, like a whitelist, or you don't want to move, like a blacklist, where you said, well, we don't want to move this and this and this and this, but we want to move only these and these applications. Both possible, and it's very easy to do that. So some of our bigger corporations, what they do with it is they create basically a no-touch migration. They already have very standard desktops, and they can do it very easily, standardize that, then send out the new PC with a stick and have the user do it, or a lower-end tech, or somebody who knows a little bit about it, or they can even do it remotely for the users. So there are very easy ways to configure the system and run it as is. For more complex migrations, you might use something like the System Center Configuration Manager and some of the tools that Microsoft are offering. Those are all good ways to do it, and we are compatible. We are actually an SCCM partner, and we are compatible with the user state migration tool that Microsoft offers to the enterprise customers. The problem is that the USMT is really a SDK, so you have to program everything, and it is a big problem because in a study that was published last year, IT departments said that 27% of data was lost using automation tools like user state migration tool from Microsoft. So that is really not the best way to do it. If you have customers who are using it, you can actually run PCmover a second time and capture all the data. But most of the customers that we have that use USMT have switched over to PCmover. For those who are interested in it, there's always a discussion about free tools. Oops, it came back to me. There's always a discussion about free tools. Free is always good. In this case, it's not very good because you pay too much for having developers actually doing all the scripting for USMT, and that takes hours and hours to do that. Any change will be done, and you of course have to wait for any improvement by Microsoft. And with them leaving the migration tool for consumers, I'm not so sure what the future of this product is. Here are a couple of case studies, and of course this is these are bigger migrations that you might do, but just to say that we have customers who say, well, we save 40% of time. That's huge, doing versus doing a migration manually. On the lower left is the insurance company that I mentioned before that always sent a loaner to their users, get the PC back, set up the new PC, send the new PC, get the loaner back, redo the loaner, and then start it over again. They spent $1,500 in logistics. And what they do now is they just send the new PC with a stick and a one-page memo and say, well, plug in the stick, say yes, and it runs by itself. And there might be some answers that they might have to give, but you can configure that any way you want. And you know how complex sometimes it can be. It shows on the lower right is international telecom companies. For their XP project, they needed to move 17,000 PCs in 22 different locations with 92 technicians. 92 technicians. They couldn't do it. They said, we are unable to do that and provide that. And so with PCmover, they could automate it to the point that they are now rolling it out very successfully and have no issues, and of course save a lot of the soft cost. So, altogether, PC migrations take too long, require too many IT resources, and aren't complete. We think that we have the only solution that you should use, and that is PCmover, that it reduce your time, your overhead, and your project timeline. And actually, you can offer services that perhaps you couldn't do before, because manually it would have been too high of cost, and you would not make a profit. Here it's a way to actually increase your margins, increase services to your customers, and actually help them, because a lot of times now small business come to the service providers and say, well, can you help me? And a lot of them have to say, well, I can't, because I don't have the personnel to even do that. So why is PCmover right for you? Well, it is the only Microsoft recommended solution, saves you time. I went through all this. We don't have to look at it again, but it is an important tool that has all the flexibility. As a partner for us, if you register with us and you buy online, you get great discounts, also free license for training. You can buy through the web page very easily, so you don't have to wait for us to fulfill anything. You can just buy from our web page, get your discounts, and it's immediately fulfilled. So certainly we have the technical support and an account manager always for you that will help you with any questions. So it's a very easy thing. Now, lastly, and then I come to my last slide, is Harry, of course, is always very, very, supporting his SMB customers and resellers and all that, and he always pushes you. Well, what can you do for my partners? What can you do? And so the offer that I want to set exclusively to those people who were on the webinar today is to say, if you sign up, we'll give you 3 free licenses of PCmover, not only to test it, but also to make some moves, and just have the ability to perhaps do a couple PCs with your customers to feel how it is. You can very easily sign up by going to laplink.com/partners, and if there are any questions, just contact us at partners@laplink.com, and we would be very, very happy to help you and see that you can grow that service business and actually grow the satisfaction of your customer with these kind of solutions. So with that, I'll close and I'll open up for questions.
Sure. So a couple of thoughts. Well, a little housekeeping first, folks. So be sure to use the chat feature to ask your questions. I have a couple questions, and I honestly, they're not even rhetorical. I'm not even sure if I, know the answer to a couple of these. So we have on July 14th of 2015, and Thomas, forgive me if I missed this, but next year, a year from now, we have the Server 2003 migration or end of support deadline. So there's going to be migrations, over the next 12 months, and certainly shortly thereafter as people realize they passed the deadline. I'm involved in some efforts internally at Microsoft where we're having these conversations, and over in OEM. And so does your tool work on the server side? It's a basic question. Forgive me if I missed it.
No, it's a good question, and unfortunately the answer is no.
Okay.
The server is so much more locked down and has more access rights that is locked for any third party. So it would be very difficult. We always look at it a little bit and say, well, it's just so much testing we have to do, so that we have not gotten to the point where we said, well, we have a product for servers.
Okay, and then I guess my follow-up is just from my time in the small business server world, and a lot of the listeners, go back to the day, there is a correlation. So one server historically equaled 15 PCs. So my comment, it's not even a question, but my comment to present to you is that with the O3 migration motion over the next 12 plus months, you're likely going to see an uptick in what you do, because so goes the server, so goes the desktop. Does that make sense? Do you see a positive correlation between a server migration and then desktop activity?
Well, honestly, I would say probably not that much,
Okay.
because basically, we are the solution already for 300 million new PCs. So every
Yeah.
PCs that come on, whether they're attached to a server, but I mean today everybody is attached to a server. When you buy a new PC, and even if you go Windows 7 to Windows 7, I mean, we focused a lot on XP, but if you go Windows 7 to Windows 7, it's the best tool to do it, because you usually don't, use an image and overwrite everything on the new PC, especially when you might have an image from a company already on it. So
Yep.
this is the only way to effectively install a new PC, and so I think it might be that more, perhaps older machines will be get exchanged as part of the move, but I think, although I think the usual 3-year update cycle perhaps is now 4 years or perhaps even longer, a lot of people have pushed it away because they didn't want to go off XP, but now we have like 50%. Yeah, and now we have 50% on Windows 7, and Microsoft will do a lot of work to try to get you to Windows 9 or whatever it's called, because they know that those people who just came from XP to Windows 7 are not going to Windows 8. They will wait to go to the next one.
Yeah, that's off the record. That's probably true. Oh, wait a minute, I'm on the record. I'm being recorded. But I would actually concur with you on that. I think I knew your product, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear I used your product a long time ago for PC to Macintosh file transfers and stuff. So that's my recollection back in the 90s, I'm going to say. Do you still do that? Do you have a way to facilitate transfers between the Mac and the PC?
Well, yes, but not with this product because it has now so specialized and so broad. But if you migrate to the Mac, there's really only files and perhaps your email. And we have a product called PC Sync that has a wizard in it that moves all your data and converts your email. And we just launched a brand new product, although old technology. I mean, not old technology, newly built, but old topic, and that is Sync. With all the new devices out there, now we have more tablets and more phones, people just don't know how to synchronize between their mobile devices and your PC. Now, not everybody wants to go into the cloud, or not everybody lives in Apple to go to iDrive, or only Microsoft to do OneDrive. You have an Android laptop, you might have an iPhone, you want to synchronize some of your data, even if it's just your pictures, but perhaps it's even files. We have a new product called Sync, Laplink Sync, that will synchronize your desktop with Android, with iOS, and with a Mac. So that is an easy way to get data exchanged between all these different devices, although I must say iOS, so the iPhone, is a really nice but painful device because it doesn't let us do anything, right, because it's all locked down so much. So but between Android, Mac, and PC, it's a very nice 3 clicks with a mouse and you synchronize your stuff.
Yeah, you're really hitting on one of the topics of the day. I mean, let me tell you, that's absolutely right with the devices. Now, another comment. So in Seattle, we have actually a couple of cool companies. I'm sure you know them. And it's a migration tool of a different stripe. So you have BitTitan with its tool to migrate Exchange email store information and public folders. And you also have Skykick. And I've gotten to know these guys, and again, they're in a different realm. Their idea is to migrate from the Exchange server up to Office 365, and push a button and it happens. It's a very different kind of migration than you're doing at the desktop level with the settings and applications and data. But it would almost seem, I mean, Thomas, I have to believe you bumped into these guys because we're in the same city, and there's kind of a it's almost like you need both. You need your tool, and then you need either you select Skykick or BitTight. Does that make sense? But you need a toolkit to kind of pull a lot of this off.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, that is certainly a new business. The question will be, is it a viable business? Because yes, you can move them to the cloud. What else? I think what we will do probably for our Windows 9 version, so next year, is that we have options that perhaps you can put your data also into the cloud. At the same time, and trickle sync it. The cloud has, despite all the success that Microsoft have with Office 365, but it's also not 100% a cloud-based system because you have a lot on your desktop.
That's right.
But there will be a move to the cloud, but it will not be 100% for many, many years to come. So we do have a lot of PCs locally, and that needs to be moved locally, but we need to offer new support for partners to say, well, perhaps, a certain amount of data or these directories I want to trickle sync to the cloud, and, PCmover can do that. So, yeah, we are totally aware of this move, and, we would be happy to work also with these kind of companies that want to convert your email store into the cloud. That all can work.
Yeah, no, it's just, like I say, I always enjoy our conversations because it's sort of a two-way, exchange of information at both the industry level and the product level and so on. Folks, I'll tell you what, I want to kind of make the first and possibly last call for your questions using the chat feature. We have the very capable Heather across the way managing the control panel, as it were. So folks, if you could go ahead and get the comments to us. While we're doing that, Thomas, great comprehensive presentation. Appreciate the nod towards the end to the reseller community in terms of how to make this a business, how to monetize it. It's kind of cool that if you can use an automated tool to be more efficient in a migration, and you engage in what I call project billing or value billing, where you say, Mr. Customer, this is $500 to do this job, and I guarantee I'll get it done, or I'll do my best, and then you can use a tool to be more efficient. I think that's a completely legitimate business model because the customer knows what he's locked into, right? It's like, okay, $500, great, perfect, locked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the customers want to do it because they know how painful it is. And, a lot of small business don't have the IT staff. But if, compared with, with the consumer model, just as an example, if you buy a new PC at Best Buy and you say, well, can you move all my, application data and settings, they will say, well, we'll install a new Office for you. Or, we'll move your documents, but only from your document directory. So a lot of these service providers have no a solution for that, so they don't offer that kind of services. So not only can you make more partners happy, or even engage in that, but you can also work with more customers because you're more efficient, and you certainly can win over more customers with your service.
Yeah. No, perfect. So let's see, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a day. We are getting you out of here 9 minutes early. As you know, we're always a stickler on time because you've taken roughly an hour out of your busy day. Hours are hard to come by, and I totally get that. Thomas, you're a CEO, and an hour of your time, that's valuable, so thank you for taking an hour out of your day as well, sir.
Oh, no, not a problem. I enjoy it, and I think it's a really important topic right now, and it will be even more important over the next years, where we have so many OSs, XP, Win 7, Win 8, Win 9 out in the marketplace. It will be quite a mess for the customer.
That's right. So I'll go ahead and do a wrap. Folks, just again, a couple of things coming up. Join us next week for the weekly webinar, of course. And then take a peek over at our fall conference. It's September 26th to 28th. Microsoft Redmond in the Conference Center. with a huge focus on Office 365, which quite frankly incorporates all of these conversations, migrations, desktop migrations, etc. Thomas, thank you, sir. And I believe, do you want to go back one slide just quickly so people get imprinted with the offer that you've made today, 3 free licenses, a PCmover Professional if you sign up and are accepted for Laplink's partner program. So www.laplink.com/partner. With that said, Thomas, we'll see you around town, as they say.
Okay, have a great day, and thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Okay, goodbye. Have a great day, folks. Bye-bye.